You're tuned to Night Nerves, where if it's scary, creepy, thrilling, or disturbing, we read it, watch it, and talk about it. I am Sam, and today I have for you 5 films that feel like a panic attack. All 5 of these films are what I would consider to be suspense thrillers. Only a couple of these fit within the horror genre. However, all of these 5 films, in my experience, give you that same visceral reaction that you get from watching an intense horror film. These will have your heart pounding, your blood pumping, you'll be biting your nails, sitting on the edge of your seat, growing an ulcer in your stomach, and maybe having a panic attack, but I hope not. Without further ado, let's talk about these 5 movies. The first film we are talking about today is Uncut Gems from 2019, directed by Josh and Benny Safdie. Uncut Gems stars Adam Sandler as Howard, a gem dealer in the Diamond District of New York City, who is a family man and a degenerate gambler. Howard acquires a black opal that he believes will garner him a large sum of money at an upcoming auction and will also change his luck for the better. But what the audience comes to discover as the story unfolds is that Howard has dug himself into a pretty deep hole and he is still holding on to his shovel. Uncut Gems is actually one of the first movies I heard people describe as an anxiety attack. I saw this when it came out in the theaters, and I can definitely attest to the tension that this movie held on the audience. We all collectively were holding our breath during scenes. We were all gasping together. It was a really great movie-going experience. The Safdie brothers are relatively new Hollywood filmmakers, despite working on more than a handful of independent films, and they have some serious filmmaking chops. Already, I feel they have a pretty distinct cinematic style, and I think 2 things about their style are most notable. One is their tendency to capture a lot of characters and a lot of action in these telephoto tight close-up shots that feel claustrophobic. They're not afraid to take the camera off of a tripod, have it be a little shaky, kind of documentary style, but it still feels very intentional, very polished, and it fits with what is happening on screen, what's happening with the story. Their second distinct signature is the way that they capture dialogue. The Safdies are not ones who let their actors finish their lines uninterrupted. Oftentimes characters are yelling over one another. The dialogue feels chaotic. It's oftentimes difficult to distinguish who is saying what exactly they're saying, but it often conveys the tone and the feel that they are going for. Of course, we cannot talk about Uncut Gems without talking about Adam Sandler's amazing performance in this film. Sandler does an amazing job at portraying a gambling addict, at capturing that wild, unhinged energy that a gambling addict, that a thrill seeker embodies in this film. This was the biggest Oscar snub that I can remember. I cannot believe Adam Sandler didn't even get nominated for an Academy Award. Uncut Gems is an absolute gem of a movie, and I cannot wait to see what the Safdie brothers do next. The second film we are talking about is called Caliber from 2018, directed by Matt Palmer. Caliber follows 2 best friends named Vaughn and Marcus who head out to the Scottish Highlands for a hunting trip. The trip is something of a last hurrah for them. Marcus is a bit of a party animal, but Vaughn is married, he's about to become a father, and this will be their last real guys trip. A hard night of partying bleeds into the next day when they go out hunting, and after a series of unfortunate events, the 2 find themselves in deep trouble. They attempt to leave the small village that they are staying at, but they constantly find themselves trapped by the locals there. Not only physically trapped, but trapped mentally, emotionally, and just riddled with guilt. On the topic of guilt, this film has a very powerful way of transferring that guilt that the 2 protagonists feel onto the audience. We know that they are in the wrong, that they deserve to be caught, to answer for their actions, but the situation is so bleak and so dire for them that we can't help rooting for them, hoping that they find a way out. And because of that, we feel guilty as well. This film is an examination of violence, of actions and consequences, and it has a way of testing the viewer's morals and their nerves as well. Not only is this a very tense film, but it's a very depressing one as well. If you are worried that Caliber is not bleak enough for you, fear not, this next recommendation is just for you. It's titled Eden Lake. It came out in 2008 and is directed by James Watkins. The film follows Jenny and Steve, an adult couple who head out to the titular Eden Lake for a relaxing and romantic getaway. However, their getaway is soured by a group of local kids who are rude and disruptive. Steve attempts to confront the kids and put them in line. However, as you might imagine, this backfires in a terrible, terrible way. Eden Lake is one of 2 films on this list that I feel really fits well within the horror genre. More specifically, the evil kids subgenre of horror. It certainly plays out like a tense thriller, but the events in the story that unfold in the film are certainly horrific. The movie is largely a meditation on the cyclical nature of violence. It's bleak, it's brutal, and it is incredibly nihilistic. Eden Lake is definitely one of the darker and more intense films on this list. Watcher beware. All right, let's lighten things up a little bit. This next movie definitely feels like a panic attack at times, but it's not as depressing, not as dark as some of the other films we've talked about. The movie I'm referring to is called Shiva Baby from 2020. It's directed by Emma Seligman. Shiva Baby is about Danielle, who is a sugar baby. She has a sugar daddy, and she goes with her parents and her family to sit Shiva, which is the Jewish tradition of visiting those who are mourning the loss of a loved one. She goes to sit Shiva, and not only does she see her sugar daddy there, but she sees a lot of family members she doesn't want to see, and her ex-girlfriend as well. Where Shiva Baby really shines as an anxiety-inducing thriller is in its situational relatability. We have all experienced being stuck at a family gathering that we didn't want to be at, talking to friends and family members that we don't want to converse with, but hopefully your experiences were not this stressful or bad. And while a funeral or family gathering with unpreferred relatives and friends seems like an uncomfortable but manageable situation, Seligman does a great job of trapping Danny at the event and raising the awkwardness and tension as the story builds towards its conclusion. And last but certainly not least, this is actually my favorite film of the bunch. I'm talking about Green Room from 2015, directed by Jeremy Saulnier. Green Room is about a disorganized punk band that is touring. They are on the road in the Pacific Northwest, but they are running out of gas and they are running out of money. So they accept a paid gig at a neo-Nazi clubhouse. While at the venue though, an illicit event transpires and the band is forced to fight for their lives in order to escape. Green Room might seem like your standard siege film, but it is much, much more than that. I think what makes Green Room stand out among other films like it is its gritty realism. Conversations between characters in the film feel genuine and real. We're not spoon-fed any exposition here, and the violence is depicted in a brutal and unflinching fashion that I have never experienced in another film before. To me, it would appear that Saulnier was heavily influenced by Sam Peckinpah, who is the director behind films such as The Wild Bunch, The Getaway, and Straw Dogs. Straw Dogs is actually one of the films I would reference to give a summation of what Green Room is about. I would say Green Room is like Straw Dogs with neo-Nazis in a punk band. And along with that gritty realism that we were talking about earlier, the neo-Nazis in the film are not just depicted as mindless bigots. They are cunning criminals who are largely prepared for the situation that they find themselves in. The leader of the neo-Nazis is played by Patrick Stewart of Star Trek, and I never would have thought in a million years that Patrick Stewart would play a convincing neo-Nazi, but not only does he do that, but he does it with such a menacing and scary presence. The film is also largely personal for me. I played in bands for many years. I played in punk bands, metal bands, and rock bands, and it was not uncommon to see neo-Nazis at shows. They'd be in the mosh pit, they'd be hanging out, sometimes starting trouble at house parties and venues. And it was always a unsettling experience seeing them at the shows, and I feel like the film does a really, really great job of capturing that experience. I feel like harsh critics of horror films often like to point out the dumb decisions that characters make that worsen their situation. There are many poor decisions that are made by the protagonists in Green Room, but because of that gritty realism, because of how grounded the story is, we don't bat an eye at their poor choices that they make that often worsen their situation or get them killed. The characters are uncertain of where they stand, what their options are, and they don't have a lot of options in general. And we as the audience feel the same as those characters. We feel trapped. We feel uncertain. I mentioned that this is my favorite film of the 5, but this is also one of my favorite films of all time. I would put it in my top 20. It's a movie I've seen more than a handful of times, and every time I watch it, I like it more than the previous time. If everything I've said about it hasn't convinced you already, Green Room is an excellent film that's a great exercise in tension, and it is one you should absolutely check out if you haven't already. And that's a wrap. Thank you so much for watching this video. As I talked about in earlier videos, I really want to do more film content, and this is me taking a step in that direction. Make sure to like this video, leave me a comment telling me which of these films you've seen, which ones you want to see, and what other films you think belong on this list. And lastly, please subscribe if you haven't already. It would really mean a lot to me. Make sure you are following me on Instagram at @night_nerves, and I hope to see you in the next one. Stay spooky.